And away we go. It is the Nightcap, brought to you by Galactic Fried Chicken, right here on BearcatJournal.com. You know the drill. www.galacticfriedchicken.com. Download the app for Android, iPhone, everything Galactic. Go to the app. They will deliver right to your front door, pretty much anywhere inside the 275 loop. Or get to Dayton, Kentucky. Tell them to pump it up. Save yourself 15% on all of the Galactic goodness. All right, Aaron. We didn't get to have a show last night. I would like to have had a show last night, but
same.
It would have just been me, and I could maybe have put up a picture of the dark with the Aaron C. Smith AC Smith at, and you would have not been able to join us because you didn't have power until 8:30.
I could have tried from my car, maybe with the phone plugged in.
Yeah.
But even that would have been dark, and I don't know.
You live literally in the middle of nowhere.
We don't get great reception out here, no.
You don't get great light. You don't get great reception. You don't
It's best when Wi-Fi runs. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So we took last night off. We're back tonight. This was the topic I was going to present to you last night because it was an article from yesterday. But let's have some fun here. Nicole Auerbach, who writes for The Athletic, wrote an article predicting conference realignment's unpredictable future. 5 scenarios for 2033 and beyond. 2033 and beyond. So I am going to present Nicole's scenarios to you, and we will discuss them. Number one scenario, a big 3. Prepare to say bye-bye to the phrase Power 5, with the Big Ten and SEC making money hand over the fist. The top of Division I is already set for clearer stratification by the end of this decade. If nothing significant in the landscape changes and no major new revenue streams pop up, the ACC, Big 12, and Pac-12 will continue to battle for number 3 billing. Whoever emerges from that battle could become the landing spot for every attractive school the SEC and Big 10 pass on. Your thoughts, and I think this is probably the most likely of her 5 scenarios that a Big 3 emerge. So what are your thoughts on one conference outlasting the other 3 and joining the Big Ten and the SEC as the 3-pronged face of college sports?
I hate it. I think it's gross for the sport, especially based on where the sport came from. Regional matchups will no longer be a thing the way they once were, so you won't have rivalries like we once did. New rivalries, of course, will emerge, but everything changes. That said, I don't think that the ACC has positioned themselves with their TV deal to be a player in this game 10 years from now, because they'll still be in the contract that they have locked themselves into that is paying them less than everyone else. I don't know that the Pac-12 will even be alive at that point because they don't have a TV deal still, as we are approaching the Pac-12
their media day. Yeah,
right. Even though that was the deadline.
Since the last Pac-12 media days, we've been talking about the new TV deal for the Pac-12. It's gone a full year. So we'll get into this probably tomorrow with Dave, because I can't wait to hear what Dave has to say.
Yeah.
The people in the Pac-12 are saying, anonymous sources in the Pac-12 are saying, there's surprising and new faces and names.
They've been saying every month they say something along this line. So over all of it. So I think that the Big 12 has positioned themselves in the driver's seat.
Here's the reality. We've seen this shit flip instantly.
Right. Sure. And the Big 12 potentially could go through 2 TV deals in this time span.
Yeah. between
And
now and
who kno-
2023.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows what the next TV deal looks like for a conference that is not the Big Ten or the SEC?
Yeah.
So-
That part's going to be interesting. But I do think it's more likely one of the three emerges, separates themselves from the group, and while they aren't ever going to get to the SEC and Big Ten, like there's just too many land grant massive like followings in the SEC and Big Ten that the Big 12, the ACC, and the Pac-12 don't have.
Agreed.
So that they're never going to be able to change that.
I just don't think it's good for the sport if you only have three major conferences and then everybody else doesn't have a chance or doesn't matter, doesn't count. I don't think it's good for the sport.
There's only 15 teams that count as it is, Aaron.
Which I don't like that either. The whole system's been
it's the truth.
The whole system's been broken for a long time. Thanks, ESPN.
Yeah. That's what happens when you get greedy and chase the money. Anyhow,
Number 2.
let's keep moving. Number 2, Notre Dame remains independent. If they get what's rumored, they're never leaving independence. Like there's talk that they're going to get $60 million a year from their NBC TV contract.
The only way that Notre Dame leaves independence, in my opinion, is if college football makes it so the three conferences are the only ones with a seat at the table.
Mm-hmm.
There is no at-large bid
Right.
at that point in time.
Right.
Or
so, Aaron, when the 12, the concept of 12 came into play, and there was this notion that the top 4 conference champions are going to get a bye, so Notre Dame would never get a bye.
Ever.
And you know what they said? Bet.
Okay.
We cool. We got, we're good.
Because potentially they're earning dumb money that is
They don't have to answer to anybody. They're not in a conference where they have to like get
worry
along
about the politics.
Yeah, right. Like so they're just like, well, we'll take a first round home game, win the first round home game, and then go play one of the top 4. Like, okay,
They've also not been relevant in the conversation for a national championship for a while.
I don't agree with that. They've made the college football playoff 3 times.
But when was the last time? I'm saying for a while. Of course, that's relative. But when was the last time? When
3 years ago?
Was it that recently?
Yeah, they made the playoff. Under Brian Kelly, they made the playoff at least twice.
The pandemic put me in a time warp, so you'll have to excuse me. But
they would have made it in 2022 or 2021.
Well, thanks, Des.
If they beat Cincinnati, but they didn't.
All the UC faithful.
Yeah.
Turning South Bend red.
But like I get it for them. We're gonna keep all of our money. Like all of you can kiss our ass. We don't have to split a pie. We get to just have a pie.
Yeah.
And eat the thing. However the hell you want to eat it. So
you just did that.
they are the biggest fish. In terms of like
Joey Chestnut style.
They in terms of what's left, they are really the only thing left.
At some point, and we'll get to some of the later points that she makes. If some of the other things go into play, I don't know that Notre Dame is going to be able to keep themselves out. But again, if you make it to where you're ineligible, if you're independent, and I think that whatever governing whatever governing body, whether it's the NCAA or they don't like this, they don't like Notre Dame being on the outside by themselves, getting to set their own rules and
Notre Dame.
Well, again, I'm trying not to get into the weeds on some of this stuff, but
you're going to piss off all the Catholics, all of them. Every single one.
Nothing of the sort. However, I think that the NCAA, or if somebody takes, if football dissolves themselves of the NCAA and sets up their own hierarchy. I don't think that everybody's going to be copacetic with Notre Dame just being on an island by itself, along with everybody else having a seat at the table.
We'll see. The Big Ten and SEC become the AFC, and NFC is number 3.
Fuck that. I hate it.
So I hate it.
All of that.
But I hate it. You have to consider it real because they could just decide to do it. Here's the thing.
If you decide to make it real, then you have to get rid of schools like Vanderbilt. You have to get rid of schools like
Indiana, Rutgers.
Yeah, they're not good for any of that.
Well, Rutgers has been in the Big Ten for 12 minutes. They still don't get a full share. They would just punt.
They still bring nothing to the table.
Right.
Never have. The New York market never cared. Still don't care. If they care, it's because they're transplants and they were going to watch it anyway, but one way or the other.
So the reason that Rutgers was brought in was cable market. Because at the time, the thought was bring Rutgers in, then we can put the Big Ten network in every cable market in New York City. It didn't matter if anybody watched. That's how cable markets used. When there was no a la carte, there was no streaming. Right. You just paid for your cable bundle. They were going to make the Big Ten network.
It all came with it, right?
Yeah, they were going to make the Big Ten network part of the basic package. And then you had to have the Big Ten network if you had cable. So then the Big Ten network was getting their money. That was the whole thought process behind adding Rutgers and Maryland as well for the DMV. That doesn't exist anymore. So Rutgers would get punted so fast. So fast.
All I'm saying is, as things currently stand, and you'd almost have to set up, if this is the way that you want to go, I'm for. I will.
Here's the thing.
I'm going to go all in on saying this. If you're doing this, then you have to have relegation. You have to have. You can't have people being stagnant. You can't have. You know what I mean? People at the bottom just being bottom feeders of these.
So ultimately, here's the problem with the SEC Big Ten thing.
You cut out so many regions.
Right. College football is not the NFL. It's not Major League Baseball. People didn't graduate from the University of Cincinnati Bengals. Right? People didn't graduate from the University of...
Some people did.
People didn't graduate from the University of the Minnesota Vikings. So you are going to eliminate a large swath of your fan base and only do the Big Ten up here and the SEC down here and nothing over here and nothing over here. And that makes no real sense. It just doesn't add up in terms of what we've always known college sports to be.
Doesn't create a national champion either if you only have, say they expand both of them all the way up to 16 teams, you're only having 32 teams competing for a national title, but you might actually have a team outside of that 32 because college, you have so many players. You have 85 players on 130 different teams. You might have somebody outside of those 32 teams that's actually good.
Right. So I don't think the Big Two is feasible in the college sports landscape. I just don't. I think a Big Three is much more likely. Number 4, the appointment of a college football czar.
I'm all for this. I've been for this for a very long time.
It's never going to fucking happen.
I've been for this for a very long time. The NCAA is the fall guy at this point, right?
They always wanted to be the fall guy.
Correct. But
that's how the system is structured and designed.
And right now it's by committee. The only way that you get a sports czar or a football czar is if you – I don't think you can do it if you have more than 2 conferences because you'd have too many people needing a seat at the table to try and have a voice at the table. And right now, that's
Aaron,
the only –
even with 2, do you think Ohio State and Michigan are going to agree with Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Georgia It's never happened in the history of the sport. It never will happen. There's no way.
It would also be Fox versus ESPN, and that'd be
Of course. There's
shit
no
show.
way, right? Like, one of them is going to say, we have our czar, and the other one's going to say, we have our czar. And our czar is bigger than your czar. And it's going to be the same fucking big swinging dick at the Cracker Factory contest that we've always had between those two leagues. They will never let that happen. Never. And if it did happen, it would be a shit show from the day it started until the day it went away.
I wouldn't want that job.
Hell no. This one is fascinating. 5. FBS 1A and FBS 1B based on employment status. Meaning there is going to be a divide between the schools that are willing and able to turn athletes into employees, to allow them to unionize, to allow them to have a players association, and everything that comes with it, against a group that is going to continue to do it the way that it has been done. I don't know how this happens, but the way we're going, this is probably the only thing that makes actual sense, isn't it?
This is the way that you get rid of the shady shit. This is the way that you get rid of Tennessee having $200
$8 million freshman quarterback.
Well,
that's never taken a snap in practice in college football.
I was going to say 200 level 1 rule infractions.
Yeah.
And an $8 million hit. Like, everything becomes, we'll say it becomes above board, but people always find a way to snake things. Like, I don't know, when Robert Kraft was dumping a whole bunch of money into Tom Brady's business as money off the books that didn't count as anything that he was being paid, as he kept taking salary cap, less money in the salary anyway.
Sure.
But there'll be workarounds. But in any case, I think this is the way to get it the most above board, to where you don't have shady deals going down. Everyone has an agent. You have a union. Players aren't being taken advantage of anymore. You don't have you have an NCAA video game released without having hiccups because 14 schools or however many schools being represented by Brander are upset. Like, I think that I'm with you. This makes the most sense. And if you can't afford to pay your players as professional athletes, then you aren't a part of the club. Get out.
No. You can go back to the old way, and you can recruit the players that aren't good enough to play the new way, and they have to play the old way. Guess what? Before you get mad about that, that happens now. Division 1, FCS, FBS, Division 2, Division 3, NAIA, all of these levels are already in place for different levels of aid, different levels of name, image, and likeness and exposure, all of that all already exists. This would just be a restructure of what we already have in place.
The problem is Title IX goes out the fucking window and everybody has to figure out how to do things going forward. But
well, that's the other fascinating part that nobody ever talks about is, guess what, Aaron? The female athletes are a lot more marketable than the men.
For other reasons, but
they just are. Branding, TikTok, name, image, and likeness, they're more marketable than the men. Go look at the numbers.
Depends on the sport, but I'm with you.
No, it doesn't. Depends on things we're not going to talk about tonight.
I don't want to get into that conversation.
We'll see you next time. That's the Nightcap, brought to you by Galactic Fried Chicken, right here on BearcatJournal.com.
See ya!